Hi, this is Walt Allen. It was my privilege to narrate the book Emperors and Assassins, written by Wahida Clark. What you're watching now is a promotional video for that book. This is the second promotional video. I know it's just one picture on the screen, but it's a video. The first video we did has an audio clip from the book. It's a battle scene from the second chapter. This is the second promotional video we did. I'll tell you why we did a second one later, but first let me tell you a story. On July 25th, 1965, Bob Dylan was performing at the Newport Folk Festival. The crowd and the concert promoters were confused when Bob Dylan and his band got on the stage with a bunch of heavy electrical instruments. This was a folk music festival and was supposed to be nothing but acoustic instruments. Unknown to everyone there, Bob Dylan had released his first electric single 5 days before, Like a Rolling Stone. And when he and the Paul Butterfield Blues Band launched into the song Maggie's Farm, the crowd went ballistic. They began to boo. In the crowd was the American treasure himself, Pete Seeger, the beloved banjo-playing peacenik of folk music. Pete Seeger, the guy who sang, "If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning." That guy. Pete Seeger picked up a hatchet lying nearby next to a tent peg, and he ran for the sound booth in an effort to cut the cables in two, to cut off the sound and the power to the band. He was luckily stopped by two people who weren't as mad. Bob Dylan's new direction was not well received because, I quote, "That sort of thing just isn't done." After we made our first promotional video for this book, Emperors and Assassins, I shared it on all of the social media sites, and I was told by some audiobook veterans that because we had added sound effects in this part of the audiobook, it would be too jarring and too disorienting for the listeners and shouldn't be included in an audiobook. I was told that sort of thing just isn't done. I didn't know that. This gave me pause. And I kept an open mind about the advice I was given, and I reflected on it for a while. Then I remembered for whom I was working. I felt really silly, because here I was, second-guessing myself about such a little thing compared to all that Wahida Clark has been through. Wahida Clark was told that small black women in prison who can't type don't write their own novels because that sort of thing just isn't done. But she did it. Wahida Clark was then told that black female inmates can't get their novels published while in prison and certainly can't get signed by any of the major Big Five publishing houses, and that that sort of thing just isn't done. But she did it twice. Wahida Clark was then put in solitary confinement because she was making a living while incarcerated because that sort of thing just isn't allowed. And then she found out that while still in prison, she had inspired a wave of people like her, incarcerated, to begin to write their stories. And they, in turn, began to write to her. She was flooded with so much mail while in prison that the warden accused her of running a business behind bars. Wahida explained that these folks were just writing her on their own because they read her story. And the warden said, that sort of thing just isn't done. But she did it and got punished for it. She was then told that people like her don't create a new genre of literature. But she did it. And they certainly would never become a New York Times best-selling author because that sort of thing just isn't done. But she did it 4 times. And when she told the people in the publishing world, I think I'd like to start my own publishing house and make it a place for other authors like me, they told her that sort of thing just isn't done. but she did it. And now Wahida Clark is venturing into the field of fantasy fiction. Fantasy is a genre that does not have lots of African-American authors, nor does it have lots of female authors. So needless to say, it does not have lots of female African-American authors. I imagine many people would say that sort of thing just isn't done. But Wahida Clark is doing it. So when we're told that we shouldn't do this kind of thing with the audiobook, because that sort of thing just isn't done, I said sincerely, thank you very much for your input. And then I like to remind myself of who I'm working for. If we think it sounds good and we think our listeners will dig it and like to hear it, and the rest of our team tells me we ought to do this, and we don't care what the rules are. Because Wahida Clark isn't the kind of person that is going to bow to the imaginary throne of someone that thinks they sit on one. Wahida already has a throne. She is the queen of street lit. She sits on her own throne. Nobody gave it to her. She built it herself. So we don't really care how they used to do it, or what sort of things just aren't done. We're going to do things the way Wahida wants to do them. And not to put too fine a point on it, Wahida Clark doesn't need a bunch of white people telling her what can and can't be done. This is Wahida Clark's new book, Emperors and Assassins. Go buy it.